Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour for the final time of the 2024 regular season, as it's already week 18 and the Philadelphia Eagles are set to host the New Jersey Giants in what is essentially the fourth preseason game. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, as long as I can continue to talk without coughing. And joining me, as always, is my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, bud?
It can't believe it's the end of the regular season. I mean, that's wild to me, but I mean, it's going to be great. There's a lot on the line, not for the Eagles, but there is a lot on the line in some other games. So it's going to be a fun weekend away from the Eagles, I guess, because we just get to watch some of our second and third stringers go at it against the New York Giants.
Yeah, before we jump into it and maybe some of the storylines or non-storylines heading into this game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHerrell54 and follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Be sure to hit the subscribe and like button and review the show and the network itself. 5 stars is always appreciated. And then if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on, I don't even care if you give us a score prediction. Like, I have one written now. I don't even know if we're going to give it. Who the heck cares? But maybe like Saquon, do you think he should have an opportunity to go for it? And that's something that we're going to discuss. What players, which backup players are you most interested in seeing in this game? And any questions you may have about the season, about the playoffs, anything at all that you would like Connor and I to discuss, because it gets real in 8 or 9 days. We don't know yet when they're going to play. Next super wild card weekend is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Hopefully it's not Monday night. Let it be a nice 4:15 Sunday or 1 o'clock Sunday game. Give us whatever. But we do know that the Philadelphia Eagles will face either the Green Bay Packers or the Washington Commanders. So let's start there real quick, Connor. If you had your opportunity to pick, and I know we've discussed this a couple times, but now we know who the two opponents could potentially be. Green Bay or Washington, who would you rather face at the Link on Wild Card Weekend?
Well, last week I said the Washington Commanders, and then this week when the news came out that Jair Alexander is going to be out for that game and that secondary is abysmal with him in the lineup, I was like, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a plus. Like, this Green Bay Packers team is weird because I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, but then you kind of see like what Jordan Love's injuries, the injury and how it kind of affected him, and then his decision-making ability throughout the season. And then you see how bad this defense is, which I honestly didn't think it was going to be this bad. But I feel like I'd rather go that direction because I don't think there's going to be anyone on that team that could stop a duo of Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown at all. I know that we would lean on Saquon Barkley a lot, but I really wouldn't be very scared if Jalen Hurts came out after being off for the last 3 weeks, essentially, and got to start throwing the ball against the Green Bay Packers secondary that did not include the best cornerback, because I think that he could definitely have a day and continue to show out the storyline of he can't throw the ball, because I think that he would have a day there. Of course, then the media would be like, what if Jair Alexander was there? But I think both are great. I would rather them over the Rams or the Bucks or some of the other scenarios that could have come out of this. But I think at this point, I'd pick the Green Bay Packers.
My only fear with Green Bay, excuse me, as I'm chewing on some ice here, is what they did to Dallas last year. They have the experience of being in the playoffs. I think that Matt LaFleur is a better coach than Dan Quinn. And I think that even if you have all the injuries in the secondary, the defense might not be playing as well. Like, it's any given Sunday come playoff time. And the Eagles defense, I mean, the offense for Green Bay is still legit. Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, if healthy, like, they're still legit offense. So that would be worrisome. And I get it. This would be if it was Washington, it would be the third time facing the Commanders. But I don't know if a rookie quarterback can come into Philly and win that game. It took. I know the Commanders did turn the ball over 5 times, but it took Jalen only playing 11 plays. It took
help from the refs.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying not to go there, but yeah, there were a couple of bad calls, and it took Quinion not having his best game, the defense having their worst game since Tampa. It took a lot for the Commanders to win that game on a last second touchdown. So I think that overall the Eagles are a better team than both. I think that they would probably cherish a rematch against Washington. But both teams I think they can beat. So that'll be interesting to see. That'll be the storyline, 1:00 Sunday. All 3 games are on at the same time, by the way, which kind of sucks because you would want to see who the Eagles are going to face. But we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see. I agree with you. I think that would be such a hard matchup in his first playoff appearance. And this is nothing against Jane Daniels. It's just it's a thing, rookies will struggle, especially if they have to go on the road in the playoffs and in those big environments. It's a known thing. It's his first season. I know that the Commanders fans are already we got to make it to the Super Bowl. He's taking us to the Super Bowl. They already have these expectations set sky high. But I mean, you have to remember that this is this is a first-year coach in this new system. This is your first year for your rookie quarterback. He's missing a chunk of. I still think he's missing a chunk of pieces that he could use. He could use some better wide receivers. Zach Ertz has been a very serviceable tight end, but he could use a better.
And Zacchaeus did score 2 touchdowns against us.
Zacchaeus and Jamison Crowder did score 2 touchdowns against us. So, but we already discussed that. We know that he can use whatever weapons he needs to use, but he could definitely gain a lot from getting some better offensive weaponry around him. And I agree with you on the Green Bay Packer front. The only thing that scares me is the Eagles would probably have to put up points, because if the Green Bay Packers were to come to town and you tell them that they're going to give up 40, they're one of those teams that I think could put up 41. That offense, when they're clicking, they can definitely click. But bonus point is we have a very good defense, and Jordan Love tends to make some mistakes. So,
and I do think having another opportunity, Vic Fangio seeing a healthy Jaden Daniels already, because the first matchup he wasn't, I think that he would devise a better game plan against the rookie. But again, playoff football is a lot different than regular season football. William, thanks for joining us. Fly, Eagles, fly. Let Barkley try.
Interesting. I want to bring up because I put a poll up on the 31st because Adam Schefter.
Happy New Year, by the way, to everybody.
Yes. I forgot to say that. I'm not used to hosting, so when that last episode, I just wasn't prepared for that. But I put a poll up, and it was right after Schefter came on the Pat McAfee show and basically said he'd be floored if he saw, if we saw Saquon Barkley before the playoffs. And I said, are you playing Saquon week 18? We got 62 votes, and it was split 31 apiece.
Wow.
Go play and go for the record, or sit and rest for the playoffs. So there's a lot of people out. This is a very, very hot topic. But I just vividly remember A.J. Brown last season playing in that pointless week 18 game, getting hurt, and essentially we can't really tell for certain if it was A.J. Brown not being there that cost us a wild card game last year. But I'm fairly certain
we saw the last 7 weeks. We saw the last
major
7 weeks of the
impactor.
season. So, they weren't going to win that game anyway.
I know. I agree. At the end of the day, and some people bring that up, but for the 50% of people that say play them and go for the record, where would you be in your heart of hearts? If you're saying play and go for the record, you have to be willing to stand there and defend if there's a consequential action that comes out of it. So would you be willing to also stand there and say, if he gets hurt, we can live without Saquon Barkley? I'm not willing to go to that level and say that. So it would be nice to have the record in-house. I agree. But
it's not even just Saquon, because if Saquon plays, you're playing Jordan Mailata, you're playing Landon Dickerson,
Absolutely.
Cam Jurgens, Mekhi Becton, probably not Lane Johnson. I think they could get away with playing Fred Johnson, but you're at least playing backup. You're at least playing 4 of the 5 offensive linemen. Now, if Jalen was able to clear concussion protocol this week, I would have considered it only to get Jalen some playing time, even if it was only for 2 series. I would have considered, and if you put Jalen out there, you're obviously putting the starting offensive line out there. And if you're going to put the starting offensive line out there, you might as well put Barkley out there. So like if you take a step back and you take off your Eagles green colored glasses, it's the right decision. This team has played football every week since week 5. Week 5 was the bye. They played every game. There have been a couple of games where the starters have been able to come out in the fourth quarter, but let's be real. It would be this is going to be game number 13, and if you go to the Super Bowl, that's 17 straight weeks. Well, there's a break between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, but 16 to 17 straight weeks of playing football. It's never happened in the history of the NFL. These guys need a break. Like AJ Brown has talked about it. Lane Johnson has talked about it. As a fan, of course I would like to see Saquon go for the record, because
absolutely,
like his name is going to be like immortalized if he were to get it. But as a person that has only seen one Super Bowl and would like to see another, you don't risk it. And look, I get it. He could get hurt in practice. There's been many non-contact injuries in practice, and not just him, anybody could get hurt in practice. But let's let them rest. Let's let them use this as a glorified preseason game. Get some of the younger guys in. Let them have some fun. Let them get some experience, and get going. Next week on Wild Card Weekend.
I agree with you. I mean, at the end of the day, as great as it would be to be enshrined in history, if this game mattered, like obviously, of course, Barkley's going out there, and it would be so easy to say go out there and get that. But because it doesn't matter, it doesn't make sense to me, because losing Saquon Barkley would just be massive. Imagine how much that has to, and then you have Jalen Hurts coming off of like 3 weeks without playing football for the wild card weekend, and you're without Saquon Barkley. It shifts the entire preparation of your team and what offense you roll out and how a defense prepares for you. It becomes a little bit easier to prepare when you don't have to, when you know that Saquon Barkley isn't running out of that backfield, because as much as they love Kenny Gainwell is far from a Saquon Barkley. We don't know what we have in a Will Shipley. No, so far from what we've seen, and of course they run behind the backups most of the time, but Shipley and Gainwell are not going to cover a Saquon Barkley injury if Saquon Barkley can't go. So, I mean,
there's not many running backs in the league.
If it was closer, like if we're talking 50 yards or less, maybe, because I think he can get that on 1 or 2 plays and be out of the game. But 108 yards, even against the New York Giants, and you don't want to do. And just the story behind it, like I get the story behind it too. It's like he leaves New York, all the trash talk. Now he's got this commercial out that's kind of throwing shade at John Mara. It's hilarious, but the whole story behind if he could get the record after leaving the shithole that is the New York Giants, he comes over to Philadelphia, breaks this record in the first season in the 18th game against the New York Giants. I get it. The story is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's everything we want to see as Eagles fans, but I'd rather see a Super Bowl and be enshrined as the Super Bowl champions for the second time in our franchise history than Saquon Barkley breaking Eric Dickerson's 40-year-old single season rushing record.
Yeah. And again, like I said, as a fan, I would like to see it, but taking, the green colored glasses off, it's the right move. And regardless of what Sirianni decided to do, it was always gonna be a negative talk out there, because a lot of people don't like Sirianni. Sirianni's making the right decision. Now, granted, I don't think he made the decision. I think it came from Howie and Jeffrey Lurie, because I think if it was up to Sirianni, he would allow him to do it. And again, I wouldn't have an issue with that, because I think he could get it in the first quarter. But I mean, he did carry the ball 31 times last week. So again, what if obviously the Giants would put 11 guys in the box? You can put 3 receivers to the outside, and they would still put 11 guys in the box and be like, throw it. Like, we're not going to let Saquon beat us. So, like, one of the receivers could have a big day. How many yards does Devontae need to get to 1,000? Put him out there and let him catch a couple bombs on air. They could be playing 7-on-7 out there, because there's no – I don't know. Or because of maybe to spite the front office, maybe the Giants defense – players would just let them get it in like 3 or 4 carries. Who knows?
I know, and I saw that report today that came out from Jeremy Fowler, and it was talking about how there's a handful of people in league circles that believe that if Nick Sirianni, if they take the wild card exit again, that he could be fired. Like, you just can't have nice, and he has like the fifth best regular season record at his 70% win percentage. Like, the Eagles just can't have nice things without there being this belief that we're ready to just cut ties with Nick Sirianni. At the beginning of the season, we discussed this and we thoroughly discussed that, when it was 2-2 and we were in the bye week, was he making it through the bye week? And I mean, at the end of the day, thank goodness he made it through the bye week, because you can't tell me that some interim coach just stepping in was necessarily going to be able to flip the culture and the entire script of the season like Nick Sirianni was able to do. I don't know about how much I believe that report or how much stock I put into that report. I think Nick Sirianni has earned himself seeing next year, no matter how this playoff goes. But obviously the expectations are started out almost non-existent by the time the bye week came, and have now become sky high, and we're one of the top 3 or 4 teams to beat in the Super Bowl. So obviously those expectations weigh on some people within league circles and their belief on if Nick Sirianni gets to see next year.
Yeah, and the same people that are saying that Sirianni should allow Saquon and to go for the record are going to be the same people that if somebody got hurt, whether it's Saquon or somebody on the offensive line, this is going to be the same people that are going to be criticizing him, saying, why did you let him play? We had the same people. You can't talk out of both sides of your mouth, and that's exactly what would happen.
And that's the issue. That's why, I guess I said you have to live with the consequences. I'm of the belief that, if you're going to make a take, be prepared to accept what if on the other side of it too. Just like what you're saying. Would you be willing to not bash him if Saquon Barkley goes out there, tears his ACL, potentially, which would cost him the start of next season as well? Like, you don't want that situation because, okay, high ankle sprain, he's fine and back next year. What if he tears his Achilles? What if he tears his ACL? He goes out there and loses most of next season on one of those injuries. Would you be willing to live with that happening as well and not be the one that, would go out and then criticize Nick Sirianni for making the decision to play him? That's why I'm of the belief that I can stand more with him sitting and be okay with that decision rather than the decision of saying go out there, because I feel like I might be one of those people who would definitely rip him in the case that Saquon Barkley gets injured. And so it's like, sit him.
So do you think, now there's a couple of people that out on the Twitter sphere have been saying that not letting Saquon go, now, there are a couple of things they've been saying. Not letting Saquon go for the record. The Eagles they must win the Super Bowl. Do you buy that? And the other one is this could hurt locker room morale. Do you think that that's true? Because I don't. Why would this hurt locker room morale? Like, they all know that the common goal is to go out there and try to win the Super Bowl. Now, would you like to have both the Super Bowl and the record? Sure. And is there a guarantee that you're going to win a Super Bowl? No, there's not. But we all do know the important matter of the next 4 or 5 weeks, the next month or so, like to go out there and win a Super Bowl. And obviously it is getting everybody healthy, keeping everybody healthy. And this is a team, again, as we mentioned, hasn't had a break in 13 weeks, hasn't had a bye, hasn't had time off. This is their de facto bye. This is their let's get charged up, let's get recharged up, and let's get ready to go to the Super Bowl. So, do you think they must win a Super Bowl? Dan Orlovsky and a couple of other talking heads on ESPN, which is why I don't watch it, any of those shows anymore, have said. And B, do you think it hurts the locker room morale?
No, I don't think it's a must win for the Eagles. We were a team that for the majority wanted Nick Sirianni fired at the end of last season. And then when we entered the bye week at 2-2, there's a majority of people who still wanted to see Nick Sirianni fired even at 2-2, despite how last season ended. So no, I don't think it's an absolute must win. Do we want to see it? Absolutely. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I don't want to see a Super Bowl, I don't care to win it. Of course, I'm just as passionate as anyone about this Eagles team and winning the Super Bowl. And you only get a handful of chances, and Howie is leaving this door wide open, year over year almost. Like usually, every 5 years he slips up, or, every 4 years he slips up. But he's left a pretty wide open window here over the last 10 years to give the Philadelphia Eagles an opportunity to go out there and win a Super Bowl. So we should count our blessings that the window continues to remain open despite some of the circumstances that we've gone through. But I don't think it's an absolute must win. If not, you blow it all up. We have a bright future. Look at all the players under contract. Look at all the young players that Howie and the scouting staff have drafted, giving us so much more promise in the future than we would have ever thought 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Going into that draft 2-3 years ago, did we think that we would look like this 3 years later, 2 years later? Absolutely not. If there's anyone who said going into that draft, we're going to look like a team that's going to be contending for a Super Bowl with a boatload of youthful talent to take us through another 5+ years. No, there was nobody saying that when Howie was entering those drafts 2 and 3 years ago. So I don't think it's an absolute must win, but I obviously want it. Does it hurt locker room morale on the other side? I don't think so. I think a lot of guys left that game. You could tell some of them were gassed. You could tell that the opinion of some of those players was already coming out like, we'd love to see it. If we were closer, we'd do it. But there was a lot of guys you could tell coming out of that Washington game or Dallas game that they were tired. They wanted to buy. They think that it's best for them. You could tell by some of the offensive linemen. I think this is a good thing. I think that there's so much positive to come into this season that you get the record. Awesome. You don't get the record. You still have so much positive things going on. And there's so much more positive to continue to play for in the playoffs.
I do think the only lineman that didn't want to play is Lane Johnson. I do think because did you watch the mic'd up that the Eagles put out? I think it was earlier today, and Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata were scheming ways to stay in the game and to keep Saquon out there to keep going towards the record. Like I think Mailata was saying something like coach will just keep calling timeouts, but once he uses all his timeouts, he can't take us out the game. We'll just stay out there. I thought it was funny. Like I do love the camaraderie in the locker room. I believe that it is a really close-knit locker room, and a lot of the guys that say like they at least got to 2,000 yards. That was one of that was a goal of theirs because you could see it when it happened. You saw Jeff Stoutland got real excited, pumping his arms. So we've said it time and time again. Going for Eric
he's
Dickerson's
enshrined
record,
just with that alone. He's only the
going for Eric
player.
Dickerson's record would have been awesome, but.
Agreed.
There are bigger goals, as everybody has said, as Saquon has said. San Diego 2019, thanks for joining us. He says, you're right about those people bashing Sirianni either way. No-win situation for Nick, even though it wasn't his decision. It's true. Regardless of what decision he made, and it doesn't matter. Like, there's going to be a select population of Eagles fans that do not like Sirianni no matter what he does. He has a 70% win percentage, 5th highest in NFL history, I think. And people just don't think he might not. He's a CEO coach. He doesn't call the plays. There are plenty of CEO coaches out there. And he's good at what he does. Like, give the guy a break. Give the guy a break and let him. The
reality is, there's
that he's going to be. He does have 1 year left on his contract, and maybe they've worked out an outline and they don't want to announce a contract extension while the season's going on because you don't want him to become the talk, even though he's always going to be the talk because of who he is.
Absolutely.
But like I'm at that point, like he probably should be given a 2-3 year contract extension.
Yeah, and I think the reality is there's a handful of or more. There's a fairly significant percentage of people who hate the head coaches no matter what the Eagles do. There's always maybe be up except for Andy Reid, but obviously Andy Reid just spans too many seasons for the Eagles and the success and the stories. But like there's always a handful of there was people out on Sirianni because of his initial press conference. They were completely gone, and those people have never come back or come around to Nick Sirianni. So I agree with you on that point. I think no matter what, it's something to talk about, but there's a percentage of people who will forever just bash the head coaches that the Eagles have because it's just what gives them something to talk about. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's Philadelphia.
Yeah, that is true. San Diego couple says it's time for all receivers not named AJ Brown and Devontae Smith to show something this week. I mean, show anything. I mean, it is tough when you have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, even though he's been out. Like, it's I thought we would have saw more from Jahan Dotson this year. We didn't. When Britton Covey was in there, he had 6 catches for 24 yards, but he's also a crash test dummy. I'm glad that this is hopefully his last year on the team. He should be gone. Anais Smith, I actually loved that draft pick, but he didn't look good in the preseason. We'll see what he can do this, and maybe next year he could be the primary punt return guy because that's what they brought him in for. But he just didn't look comfortable catching any punts preseason wise. So we'll see what happens, but it will be nice to see some of the young guys, Johnny Wilson, Anais Smith, EJ Jenkins at tight end. What other guys will they bring up? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. Is John Ross still on the practice squad? I can't remember if he's still on the practice squad or not.
No, they have Danny Gray, Paris Campbell, and Kyle Phillips on the practice squad for wide receivers. Obviously, you're going to see at least probably 2 of them get called up because presently they have Wilson, Smith, and Dotson.
So I did see, I think it was an AJ Brown tweet. He said, you're all going to see something Sunday. And that had me like a glimmer of hope that maybe that some of the starters on offense, on the offensive line with Saquon would play to go for the record. But we've seen the injury report all week. Like Saquon hasn't practiced. Saquon practiced today. And some of the offensive linemen did. AJ Brown didn't, Devontae didn't. I wouldn't expect like AJ and Devontae to play, but like you can throw the 4/5 of the starting, as Will says, sit Johnson, start Johnson, play for a half, get the record, then get some rest. Like you could do that. I mean, who would play on that side? Is that Brian Burns' side? You just run away from, or actually run right at him. Like usually, like they usually run at Micah Parsons.
Brian Burns is on the left side
of the defense.
Yep. So he'd be right side.
That
so
would
he
be
would
on.
Be going up against.
Yeah. So like you never know. San Diego asks, are you guys concerned about Jalen still not practicing or being cleared from protocol? I'm not. Now, if we get to next Wednesday and he's still not cleared, then I'm worried. But I think he has been when you're in concussion protocol, you don't talk to the media. You don't like nothing. You don't do press conferences. You don't. So I actually like that he's able to take a step back. He doesn't have to worry about.
He's doing it on purpose a bit.
Well, I don't know if it's purposely a purpose thing, but like he hasn't needed to play. Remember 2022, the only reason he played in that last game after the shoulder thing was because they lost to Dallas and the Saints. And Gardner Minshew couldn't beat either of those teams, and they needed to win to win the division and get the number 1 seed. So I think that this could be more of a like, what is the point? Like, you're not going to play. You don't have to worry about talking to the media. Because remember when Saquon and Jalen bought the golf carts for the linemen, he would like there was a video when they all went out there to drive them around, and Jalen was out there. So, he's not required to talk to the media. He doesn't have to be around, like out on the field. So we talked about something that maybe like a lot of people have talked about, getting Saquon off his feet, and maybe Saquon isn't the type that really wants to do that. He obviously wanted to go for the record because you could hear when he was talking to the media on Wednesday or on Tuesday, whatever day it was. Excuse me. But yeah, like I think next week he'll be cleared after the game Sunday, and he'll be back on the practice field for the playoffs. And you're going to see a focused and determined. And am I worried about rust when it comes to Jalen? Maybe a little bit, but like it doesn't take much to hand the ball off. You'll be able to run against Washington. You'll be able to probably run against Green Bay. And by being able to run the football, that can open up the passing game, and you can go to the play action game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not that concerned about it. It is what it is. Like you said, it's kind of a good thing for Jalen. I think being able to step back and and not. I mean, some people are kind of worried. Some people think that it's gone on too long and it's going to keep going. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Tuesday comes next week and he's right out of the concussion protocol, pops out as if nothing happened, and he's a full participant in practice. I don't see it extending beyond that, especially the way it was criticized. Like when you watch the video, I mean, the way his eyes were when he was giving his thumbs up. I mean, obviously he was concussed, but obviously we already discussed, the protocol with concussion and how it's not a one size fits all and equal for everybody. We've seen Josh Allen take way bigger hits multiple times in games and he be allowed to play without any question. But that's a story for another day and something for the NFL to attempt to figure out. But I think he'll be out of the concussion protocol as soon as it flips to the next week on actually it might be Monday. Is there a Monday night game this week? I don't think there is. So yeah, as soon as it flips to Monday or Tuesday and he does his testing for the protocol, wouldn't be surprised if he came out of it. Now, am I concerned there's going to be some rest to start the game? I mean, how many games have we really started that fast in the season? I get recently there's been a couple more, but I mean, we've started more games slow in the first and second quarter, first quarter specifically, that I'm not worried about a slow start from Jalen Hurts coming out of the concussion protocol and stuff either. So, and like you said, if you can hand off and get things, get the defense kind of pushed back a bit and on their heels by using Saquon Barkley and leveraging that really, really strong run game, then Jalen Hurts will just probably get really comfortable really quickly and get into the game. So as much as we said, if he's healthy, we would have liked him to see him for a series or two. This is all probably for the best for Jalen Hurts.
Ken James says, we'll see y'all next week. He's a Packers fan. Would you rather face the Eagles, or if you were the 6th seed, you would face the Rams? I think it's the Rams that are the 3rd seed.
I think you're right.
I don't think Dallas has beaten Washington. Now, they did beat them once this year, and this game's in Dallas, so it could potentially happen.
Mike McCarthy could be coaching for maybe not his job in Dallas, but it appears maybe he's coaching for other jobs too.
Yeah, potentially. You never know. So we'll see. And the Packers should beat the Bears. The Bears stink, which I called this year. The Bears are terrible. So which player are you excited to watch this Sunday, if you even do watch the entire game?
Well, I'll start with that poll because we had a poll for that as well. I put Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Tanner McKee, Jalen Hunt, and other as the options. 34% picked Jeremiah Trotter, 54% picked Tanner McKee, 8% picked Jalen Hunt, and 2% picked other. High Five at High Five 1985 said Will Shipley. We are Will Shipley fans on this podcast, so I think we'll definitely be ones watching him as well. At Ronnie Aligo said the Giants offense had a bad game last Sunday versus the Colts, or had a big game last Sunday versus the Colts. From what I've read, the Colts linebackers didn't play well. If Jeremiah plays well, our defense will do its job and our chances of winning increases exponentially, even if it's our 2s and 3s versus the Giants 1s. At Steve Fox 368, add Will Shipley to the list if he's able to play. And then at Hugh Ass 696, wonderful name, Trot, I'm excited for the future of him here at linebacker one day and want to see his development, especially after a year of learning behind good linebacker play. Big on him and think he's an all-pro down the line. So those were some of the responses and the feedback. There's kind of like a handful of players I'm kind of excited to see. But I mean, if you're really making me pick just one, I think it's going to be Will Shipley. I've wanted to see Will Shipley all year. When we've seen him, in the preseason, he's been behind like 3rd stringers and 4th stringers. I get it. He's only behind the 2nd stringers, but our 2nd string offensive line can probably beat some of the bottom of the pack offensive lines just as number 1 starters. So, I mean, I'm pretty excited for Will Shipley. I'd love to be excited for one of the wide receivers, but obviously they're buried behind Smith and Brown, like you said, for beyond this year. It's going to be the next at least 2 years that they're buried. behind, Smith, Brown, depends what they do with Dotson, but one of them maybe has to step up. I think that they'll still address wide receiver in the offseason, despite Johnny Wilson and Anai Smith being around. So I'm going with Will Shipley. I mean, we've seen a lot of Saquon Barkley, a lot of success. If he can do some really good things again behind this second, but with Tanner McKee at quarterback and the number 2s on the offensive line, I think that there's a bright future, and he can kick the door open for Kenny Gainwell and push him out, because Kenny Gainwell's a free agent, and I really think the Eagles are going to bring him back. It just feels the way. They love Kenny Gainwell. I don't know if they're going to let him walk, but I would like to see Will Shipley open the door for him and say see you later, because I don't need to see more of Kenny Gainwell. Admirable second or third stringer, certainly, but we can do better, and we have better on the roster already. So Will Shipley for me.
I'm going Tanner McKee because I think he has the chance to be the second string QB, and I think he's better than Kenny Pickett already.
Kick the door open and send Pickett out in the offseason with him.
They could potentially trade Kenny Pickett, recoup something back. You never know. But yeah, I like to see Tanner. Now he's not going to be throwing to AJ or Devontae, obviously. But we'll see what he can do with Johnny Wilson and Anaya Smith, Paris Campbell. We'll see what he can do with EJ Jenkins. Maybe Grant Calcaterra will play, but he's not the best blocker, but he has become a vital part of the passing game recently. That nice catch that he had last week. So we'll see what Tanner McKee's able to do. So I'm going to go with
and
Tanner.
Don't discount Tanner McKee's ball. Those were not he throws with some authority. Those balls were nice balls that he threw for the catches. Of course, like you said, it's easy when you got the Devontae Smith and AJ Brown catching the ball for you when you're up against, a depleted roster and defense of the Dallas Cowboys. But still, I'd like to see more out of Tanner McKee with some of the starters, but obviously he's not going to get there. But it would be nice to see what he can do with some of these guys, and if he can do something, because Tanner McKee's high on my list as well. I know there's been a lot of people talking about Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, Jeremiah Trotter, obviously, Jalix Hunt. There's a handful of defensive players I'm really intrigued to watch as well.
Gabe Hall, maybe?
Gabe Hall, yeah, definitely for on the defensive line. I felt he was an under the radar, UDFA that we were able to get our hands on. So I'll be interested to see, what he's like and how he's been developing on the practice squad. But obviously, I think there could be a major shift along the edge next year. Obviously, is Bryce Huff going to remain on the roster? That remains to be seen. Josh Sweat, are they going to be able to bring Josh Sweat back? Do they see Nolan Smith as a starter? How do they plan to attack edge altogether next season? So it'll be interesting to see if they see enough out of Jalix Hunt to give him a bit more of a role. But we know that Howie Roseman loves his edge rushers, and we know that he's going to do something, whether it be a splash in free agency, which you may be a bit more hesitant after the Bryce Huff one, or drafting. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see them drafted one, if not multiple edges. But I think there may be a changing of the guard there at edge next season, that a pretty significant shift. So seeing a guy like Jalix Hunt out there will definitely be really interesting. When I look at the practice squad, I mean, there's really not much there for any edge rushers coming up that might provide any source of excitement. So it's more of Jalix Hunt to watch as well too. So
and you have to remember, you can only deactivate 7 players. So you can't not play 22 starters. So there are going to be some. Nolan Smith will probably play a little bit. Moro Jomo, and I'm not saying he's a starter, but Moro Jomo will play a little bit. Getting Jalen Carter, and when we were talking about having some of the offensive guys start, the defensive guys don't have to start. Jalen Carter doesn't have to be out there. Josh Sweat, Zach Baldwin, who became a Pro Bowler for the first time. N'Kobe obviously won't be out there because he's hurt. CJ GJ, the Slay, and Mitchell and DeJean, the defensive guys. Now, some of them are going to have to at least dress because you need to have some bodies just in case, but they don't have to be out there on the field. The big question was the offensive side, obviously, because of Saquon. Do you entertain going for the record? I still think it would be an all-time troll job by Sirianni if Eagles get the ball first, and the starting offensive line is Saquon jog out there with Tanner McKee. I think that would be
Not
freaking
minus
crazy.
Lane Johnson, maybe.
minus Lane Johnson, but like I could see Dickerson, I could see Mailata, Juergens, like, and I wouldn't leave Juergens out there alone. He's played over 1,000 snaps this year, so like he's somebody that could definitely use some time. But it wouldn't shock me. Like that would be an all-time troll job by Nick Sirianni if the Eagles get the ball and you see Saquon trot out there and it's like let's go, let's get this record in a quarter.
It'll be interesting to see the 7 inactives. Obviously, one spot is obviously Jalen Hurts, no doubt. But it'll be interesting to see because obviously, if Saquon Barkley's there and all the starting offensive linemen are off that list, yeah, you never know.
Again, you can't put all 11 off. You can't put all 22 starters on that list. So there are going to be players you look and you're like, they're not there, but they're not playing. And it is tougher too because it's not a college roster when you have 100 guys. Like it's 53 and 46 on a game day. So there's only so much that you can do. So there's going to be guys like Mailata will probably dress. Becton will dress. Like offensive line is going to be Johnson, Steen, Gates, Keegan, and Driscoll probably is my best guess.
Driscoll or Kennard, whatever they ultimately decide.
So like that would be my best guess at this point. And Giants fans will get all excited when their starting defense gets a sack on Tanner McKee or forces a turnover. And I kind of hope the Giants win so that again they had the first overall pick before winning last week. Now they're at 3 or 4. They win this week, they can go down to as low as 9. So I thought they wanted Shedeur Sanders. Well, they keep winning games. That's why I thought like if you put Saquon out there, maybe the defense will just roll over. Like it's hard to do that in the NFL, but again, to out of spite of the front office, out of Joe Shane, just let Saquon go out there and get the record. But it won't happen. Just saying.
So Pro Bowl.
The biggest snub was Jordan Mailata. Easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Highest grade.
If it wasn't for Penny, if it wasn't for the fact that on that side it's Penny Sewell, 100% Jordan Mailata. I know that some people are like, oh, but he didn't play. He missed some games. He still squashes the majority of left tackles in the NFL with his performance, even with games missed. It is crazy because you see all the stats out there. He's left on an island the most. If you pull up that chart, it's Mailata and Johnson, and they're on their own chart essentially. And Penei Sewell's smack dab right in the middle. He's not even on it. He's on an island just over 50% of the time, when Mailata and Lane Johnson are on an island right at, I think, about 75% of the time. They're like 20% of the time more they're left on an island. And then, of course, I know that you're not a big PFF fan, but you were referencing it, and to be the top at a position, that's not something you just scoff at and say, there's no way that's true. Once you get into the nitty gritty, you can be like, F this stat, F that stat. But when you're the top guy at your position, that says something, and that says something about the multiple people that are watching your tape and grading you out to be this high. So agreed with you on this one. Jordan Mailata was just a massive snub, and I think it's purely because of the namesake of Penei Sewell.
I also think it's crazy the Eagles lost 2 all-time greats, franchise legends, in J.C. Kelsey and Fletcher Cox, and their replacements made the Pro Bowl in Juergens and Jalen Carter. That's just crazy, and nobody. They're good. Obviously, Jalen Carter has a chance to be all-time great, and Cam Juergens was selected by Kelsey for the most part. But for them to the first year out to go out there and make the playoff or make the Pro Bowl, it's awesome. Now we're hoping that these 6 guys aren't even playing in the Pro Bowl games, but it is nice to get that recognition.
Absolutely. Well, it just goes back to what I said 2-3 years ago. Are you sitting there telling me that we're replacing these absolute Eagles legends with Pro Bowlers bound to be Eagles legends again? there's no way you're telling me that you saw that coming with guys that, well, Jalen Carter probably, but like to be this immediately impactful, like year one, you're asked to be a starter and you go out there and you're immediately that impact. You don't necessarily always get that from some of these guys. So that was pretty awesome. Just wanted to touch on that quickly, but
so before we get to our quick prediction, like we don't even need to go over players or whatever keys to the game because the game doesn't really matter. We'll just give our prediction. Your unheralded player of the week for week 17 in the NFL. Who do you have? Did you even have a chance to look?
I got Tyler Huntley. Again, of course, Tua injured, so Tyler Huntley had to step in there, kept the Miami Dolphins. Of course, it is against Cleveland Browns. I get it. But he kept the Miami Dolphins playoff chances alive. Went 22 for 26, 225 yards and a touchdown. What does that say about the Cleveland Browns when a backup quarterback has 4 incompletions, by the way? And then he went 7 carries for 52 yards and a touchdown. Really massive performance and kept the Miami Dolphins playoff dreams alive. Do I think the Miami Dolphins should be in the playoffs? I mean, if they had Tua for the full year, they likely wouldn't be relying on week 18. But at this point, I mean, I think they'd get squashed in the playoffs. But Tyler Huntley for unheralded player of week 17.
I'm going Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee specifically, just I've been wanting to see him out there on the field. They went a combined 13 of 19 for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns to help the Eagles clinch the NFC East. So I'm going to go to Eagles backup quarterbacks. And Dallas lost to all 3 Eagles quarterbacks, by the way, this year, which is pretty cool. All right. Okay. Eagles, Giants.
San Diego 2019 have to just say this. Don't entertain Ken James's comments. Get Green Bay out of here. Listen, we like when, the opponents come on and talk some stuff. I mean, it's fine. We want everyone to come and join the podcast, join the stream, and talk, even if it's talking smack. So we have to entertain the comments of Ken James. Hopefully he returns next week when we preview that matchup.
Assuming it is the matchup.
Assuming.
All right. Eagles, Giants, week 18, game that means nothing. It's the 4th preseason game. We don't care. I don't need any analysis. Just give me a prediction because who the hell cares? I'm writing it down for our records. I'm 10-6. You're 8-8, by the way.
Oof! Wow, rough go for me this year. But I mean, I like that I'm wrong for the most part because I was wrong because the Eagles won for the most part. So I'm going with the New York Giants. I mean, I don't. I think they're gonna they put it all on the line last week. I want to see them win just for the sake of hurting their draft capital even more. And giving us a nice week opponent for the next 5+ years in the NFC East.
I mean, they'll find a way to screw it up anyway.
Yeah. So the score, and I think it's going to be close. That's the sad part. 24-21, New York Giants.
24-21, the Giants. Okay. I'm going 24-14 Eagles. Just because
I'd be fine to see the backups win like that. That'd be great.
I think Tanner McKee. I think Tanner McKee's going to have a decent game. I think. Let's see which backup running back or which backup is going to catch a touchdown pass. I'm going to go Nia Smith. I'm going to let Nia Smith score a touchdown. Why the hell not?
EJ Jenkins. He built that rapport because he built the most rapport with Tanner McKee in the preseason and stuff. And he had that preseason that kept him hanging around our roster. So EJ Jenkins for me.
There you go. All right. Eagles, Giants, Sunday at 1 in the meaningless last game of the regular season. And this is all before our wild card weekend. We will find out Sunday. I'm assuming Sunday night we'll find out who the Eagles play. Well, we'll know who the Eagles play, but when they will play. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Hopefully it's not Monday night. I wouldn't mind a Saturday night, but I think it's going to be a Sunday game, personally. And hopefully we get more news on Jalen Hurts. We'll be back on Monday with I really don't want to do a review of Eagles Giants, so maybe we'll do a playoff preview. Who knows? We'll see. But I definitely don't care about this game enough unless Sirianni trolls everybody and Saquon trots out there. Other than that, I don't care about Week 18. I really, really don't. This game means nothing in the pantheon of this 2024 season. The Eagles are already NFC East champs, the number 2 seed. We know that they will be at the link sometime next week against either Green Bay or Washington. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRound54 and follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Thank you for all the comments in the comment section. We will be back next week on Monday with a playoff preview, and then later in the week with our Eagles and game preview. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Thank goodness I get another game after this because I don't want to waste this, but fly, Eagles, fly.